Hi, Sue.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jefferson.
Hello.
I'm here with Addison Schierbeek. Sue Addison is from Chicago. Jefferson Schierbeek is from Michigan. They met in grad school at the University of Michigan and moved to LA in '88 when they got married. They started working in architecture in 1984 or '85. They worked for John, is it Claggett? Claggett? Yeah, and Paul Lubowicki when first in LA. Their stints in other offices, working for Frank Israel's office for a year or so, amongst others. They started their own thing around 1994, and other things like they also have an entrepreneurial startup, which is an outsourcing company called CADforce. Welcome, Sue and Jefferson. And I've known them. We actually, our daughters went to preschool together. And so we didn't typically meet in a architectural setting. We actually met, we must have met at like a preschool function. Our daughters immediately became attached to each other, I suppose. Maybe they saw similar aspects to somebody else having architects as parents. But anyway, that's kind of how we met. And our daughters are now 30. Your son is what, 28?
27.
27. Yeah. And then I have a 26 and a 24-year-old. So that's great.
Years, basically.
More or less.
28 or 29 years.
Stop counting after a while.
Yeah. And so we both we both lived and worked in Venice Beach, California. Jefferson and Sue had this great house that was a few blocks away from me, which, when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like it is possible to buy something in Venice Beach and then really turn it into a great project. And then, of course, they sold while they could and were able to take all of that equity, really at the right time. I feel like it was like the right time. Yeah. And then buy a house in Mar Vista. And then we moved to San Diego, right about when the girls were in kindergarten. We're about to start kindergarten. Yeah. So I know that you have a practice together and for quite a long time. So you've been in practice 30 years. And so what is that really? Yeah. I mean, maybe more for that. What is that really? What is that like? Yeah.
Well, it's been a true partnership in every sense of the word. I think we're partners in life and professionally, and it's great. I mean, I really couldn't imagine doing it any other way because this is what we know, and it's we complement each other well, sometimes not so well, but we've definitely learned how to step in and collaborate and get a lot done between the two of us.
It's not that we just got married and started working together. I think that when we first started seeing each other,
true.
We were working. It was interesting. One of us would be working in an office and they would need somebody, so the other would go over there. So we probably did that in 3 or 4 offices before we got married.
Yeah.
And then
I was in Chicago for
a bit. Yeah.
For a little over a year working in Chicago, and then we got married and moved to California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's like the only time that I ever worked at an office with my late ex-husband was at Appleton, Metro and Associates. And it was the same thing. They had, they needed somebody to come in. And so, they just said like, hey, what is she doing at the time? I think I was gradually like phasing out of one firm. And so I went, to that one. And I mean, that was a great experience because I really had an opportunity to work, even though it was like maybe 9 months, I think, that I worked there. I had a lot of we worked on some great projects that are still, like, 30 years later, there's still projects that he has on the website. And I was kind of, I was telling somebody, the other night that it was great to, it was great to have that experience. And I mean, I think it was great to be in LA in the 90s, I mean, I just think that there was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we briefly spoke about how, I was like working for a structural engineer. You guys were working for an architect that used to use that structural engineering. And so, we were all kind of, with like more of like a bit, community that was really kind of, very incestuous maybe, but, also a lot of, building up the profession, I think.
I actually feel like it was back then, and granted, I'm a lot older now, but when we first got here, I felt like it was an incredible network of people our age who were working in different offices that were doing like really interesting and, explorative work. And it just felt like a big community. It really, it was a kind of an exciting time to be working in LA. I feel, like I said, I can't speak to what it's like right now as much, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally second that or third that. Like, what do you think, Jefferson?
Well, way back in the day, when we used to go to parties at like Angie and Larry's house with people then, so we were all at the same time hanging out, and it was the SciArc people because John and Paul both taught at SciArc, so we'd go to crits there, and there were always people circling through whatever office you were in. It was all that same wonderful group of people, so we had a lot of fun.
I think a lot of us lived in Venice or Santa Monica and around that area, so we used to joke that there were more architects per square inch, which, basically just walk out your door and you bump into another architect, and that's how all our kids got to know each other, and it was fun.
Yeah.
In Mar Vista, within probably 4 or 5 blocks, I think there are 3 or 4 architects.
Yeah, there are on our block.
So everybody's an architect in West Los Angeles, it seems like. So.
Yeah. So I think that we would go to, we'd go to the lectures, and I mean, we would take our kids to the lectures. And I mean, it's like we would go to, and I mean, I think that it was kind of nice because, I mean, people now are like saying, oh, I can't do things because of my kids, or I can't do this because of that, and it's like, we would just like take our kids, I mean, I would take my kid to the building department. When I came down here, I'd take my kid to the building department. And it's funny because, when we were going in person or something, they would say, oh yeah, you used to bring your kids in here, and I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I didn't have childcare, I didn't have anything. It's like, I was like watching, it's like I have my own practice, and yeah, I was bringing them into the building department. I mean, there wasn't anybody else. Either they were, in school when they got older, but when they were younger, yeah, I just brought them into them to the building department with me.
Yeah. I think we used to all for each other too a bit when it came to that.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as the fire rebuilding and any of those projects, have you been involved? And I know I've been on several webinars that have kind of like talked about the rebuilding process, even though I'm in San Diego. And then I have a project in Altadena that I'm probably going to be doing that's a rebuild from someone in their community. So
yeah, it's definitely been a pretty kind of mind-blowing experience being involved with that. I mean, we have one very active and several starting up, projects starting up, and just kind of watching the building department try and land strategies for moving forward with these projects and getting some clarification on, like for like, and what kind of fast tracking they'll do for these projects. I think all of it hasn't completely landed yet, but I know that they're working on it and just trying to keep up with that. But I think on the other end of that is the clients who have really lost a lot, and you really feel that sense of loss in working with people, because I don't think a lot of these families have necessarily, would have necessarily chosen this path. And
Mhm.
even if it is, there's maybe some silver lining in that there are opportunities for them to make their home a little bit better than it was, I still think the sense of loss, in a way, is a bit bigger than that opportunity. And so there's a lot of navigating how to work with somebody who's been kind of traumatized by this process.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was like saying to one of my friends, I mean, she also went to SciArc, and she's not in architecture, but she's in the kind of the therapy field, and then her husband's an architect, and they lost 2 homes. And she's like, well, we shouldn't be like complaining about, and I'm like, well, no, I mean, it's still a loss, right? I mean, if you lose everything that you have, I mean, it's still a tremendous loss. And when I'm working with this woman in Altadena, I mean, I think the Palisades is a little bit, I think the security is a little bit better there. In Altadena, it's like the streets are just open and people are just coming onto the lots and stealing things, and yeah. And so when I was there at her site, she had a fireplace, and it had, the tiles, and I'm not sure like which tile place. It might have been like a local one. I don't think they were bachelor tiles, but a local tile place, but somebody had taken the ones that had the decoration on them off of the fireplace. Yeah. And then threw the rest of them on there. And so I was like, gosh, it had to be somebody that actually knew that there was some value, I mean, so yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So it's like to have to lose everything, and then people are stealing from the lots, because yeah.
I think that to just reiterate, I think that what surprised me, I think, is just how emotionally complicated it is. It's our empathy radar had to go way up, and I don't probably shouldn't have been surprised, but it's really complicated for everybody. We had a project that was actually an ADU in the backyard of a project that we did about 10 years ago. And we were in plan check. So we got plan check, our first round of plan check red marks the week after the fire. And everybody, we just all looked at each other and was like, will they let you build an ADU if there's no main house? And when I wrote the plan checker, he said, no. The current law says you can't. He said, but let me get back to you, because I think they may rethink that. Yeah. So it's a constant. It's really a fascinating constant change of information. And what our clients, some of them very enthusiastically go to the one stop, and they go to all these meetings and they hear all this stuff, and then they say, this is what I heard, and it's like, well, that was last week.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then. I know that Pasadena Foothills chapter, but it's like the county of Los Angeles, it's not the city of Pasadena, and it's Altadena, and so there's different, kind of rules, and then the client is like bringing like, oh, am I going to be affected by this? And I said, well, no, because it's planning and zoning, and your house was already within those. These are more for houses that maybe were within a setback, and so rebuilding, they're going to be more concerned about whether or not you're going to be able to build within those setbacks, which, she was not. So, yeah. And then just, I mean, the insurance, allocations of things that,
just layers on top of layers. Of
Yeah.
Underinsured or not insured or not sure. All those things happen.
Yeah, and how much you're going to, pardon me?
Yeah, we were able to drive up into the Palisades to take a look at one property in particular, but we were also driving around to look at a few other properties that we knew had burned. And it was awe-inspiring. I mean, first and foremost, that blocks of structures had burned continuously along like one side of the street, but then across the street, there were homes still standing. And it, how somewhat random that was. And, in one case, we were looking for a project and we couldn't find it because.
It was very disorienting.
Yeah.
To have all the landmarks burned down. You couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the streets were kind of blocked and there was debris all over the place. So it was a little hard to navigate how we were used to navigating up there.
Yeah. And then with the winds, I mean, like on my clients, but the winds, had taken all of the appliances and it was like a tornado, like where all the appliances were in the center, where everything had just, and some of the stuff was just like spewed around the site, where, instead it wasn't just like everything was burned where it was like, but because of the winds that were coming through, everything also was like on fire, but then was also like flying around everywhere. Yeah.
Right. And gas appliances exploding. It was pretty amazing to see. There was one property that had a, stuccoed CMU landscape wall that looked perfectly intact, but behind it, a 2-story steel frame was completely burned out, melted. It was just mind-boggling, really. But I know that all of that's going to get cleared out over the next few months.
Yeah. And I know the Army Corps of Engineers is already going through, as long as everybody on like one block, if everybody would sign off, in Altadena, if everybody signed off on the block, then they could go through and do it much faster because they're just going from, they're just doing one street at a time rather than like, but, and the other thing is that, it's like the homeowners are still being charged for that. I mean, a lot of it's like, oh yeah, it's like no, they're still being charged. It's just that the Army Corps of Engineers is doing it for you, but you're still going to get charged from the, by the county and everything. So it's not like you're getting
the insurance company.
It's insurance payout. And so my understanding, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, is if your insurance policy doesn't have a lot clearance amount, then the Army Corps of Engineers waits until all money's been paid out and whatever's left, that's what they take. But that's another thing that's in a real gray area. But if you have a specific amount allocated to lot clearance, that's what the Army Corps of Engineers will take as a payment for insurance. So it's we're all learning a lot of interesting.
Yeah. And it's changing all the time. Okay, so what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture, Sue?
Oh gosh, that's really clear to me because I grew up outside of Chicago, so architecture was big in Chicago. It was definitely culturally a big topic of conversation always. But I grew up in a neighborhood where down the street, a steel and glass home was built. Turned out I was in grammar school probably, but when the family moved in, there was a young girl my age and we became friends. The father, who was the architect, was Joseph Fujikawa, who was one of Mies van der Rohe's
partners.
Well, it was Dirk Lohan's partner. When by the time I met him, but it was this gorgeous home that kind of sprouted in a much more traditional neighborhood. And I think, I was like probably late grammar school, middle school, when I used to spend a lot of time there in the home. And that had a big impact on me. And I think as I went through school, I always kind of harkened back on, the beauty of that. And I think that just made a significant impression on me.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
The slight sad story is we drove by it very recently and it's not in great shape.
No, it's
a beautiful, high modern house, but it's not being taken care of.
It's not with the family anymore, so it definitely took a little bit of a hit. But back when it was built, it was quite beautiful.
Jefferson, what about you?
My quick story is that my father was a builder, and so growing up, he worked as when I was young, he was a construction manager for a contracting company, and that contracting company had an in-house designer. He was an architectural designer. I don't think he was ever an architect, but he was pretty much the coolest man I had ever seen, black turtlenecks and smoking and drawing and drinking at the same time. And it was very, very, early 60s, but his name was Jim Frimidig, and he was, he it's like, hey, if I have to do something, I want to do what he's doing. So I went and started doing drafting and all that stuff in middle school, and then took the architecture classes in high school, and then went to Michigan for architecture school. So I just always wanted to be an architect, mostly because of Jim. So, and my father's name is Jim too, which is kind of interesting. So
Jim and Jim. Yeah. One of the people I interviewed said that the person came that they were working in construction, and this person came up and they had this long scarf that's flying behind them in a sports car. They came up. And I said, and he goes, yeah, I just really wanted to be like him. And I'm like, who was it? He goes, oh, it was Rob Quigley, So, and then he went to go work for him, a few years later or something. He went to go work for him. So it's like he actually saw the person, and then he went and worked for them later on.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So, what are 3 classic buildings that you like, and why?
Well, I guess if I'm starting,
Yeah.
I always think about buildings as sort of an adventure. So I don't know, I feel like I've always my favorite buildings are those where I went on pilgrimage and went to go see something. The first one I think that I would say was, there's 2 Corbu buildings. One was Ronchamp, the chapel, and what it took to get me there was something. But a little hitchhiking, a little, not knowing what I was doing, and very small amount of French in my background. But so that was pretty awe-inspiring. And then more recently, we were in India, and we went to Chandigarh and got to see the whole city planning, from everything from city planning to the buildings themselves. And it was so impressive, and I think just, I don't know, really wonderful to see, and to see it being used as culturally as it was meant to be used, in a culture or society that we couldn't necessarily relate to in the same way, but it was really beautiful to just experience that. So that's 2, right? I'm going to let you take 1 or 2.
No, it can be 3 for each of you.
Yeah.
I know, but
yeah.
He has to think of the third.
I have to think of the third.
Okay.
So I'll start, I think, with the oldest, and I would say that one building, and I'm sticking sort of to Los Angeles in a way. I did have Chandigarh on there because I thought that was really amazing, but I really like Irving Gill's little housing complex. I think it's on Hollister in Santa Monica. It's just a gorgeous little, it's so nice. It's just really, really sweetly done. And for when he was working at the time, the idea of modernism didn't even exist. And he, I think, feels like one of the many people. And in the same vein, you just, when you go to the Schindler King's Roadhouse, it's just like crazy how wonderful and interesting that house was, for both the technology and the time, and the fact that we still build with the module system that Schindler basically came up with, the idea that we have studs at 16 inches on center, and 6 foot 8 is a thing, and 8 foot's a thing, and 4 by 8, and all those things. It's just kind of wonderful. And then the third for me, which is, if people come from out of town and they're like, well, take us on an architectural tour, I always really like to start off at the LA Cathedral, Maneo's cathedral, because it is just truly a magnificent and grand and kind of humbling space. I just really love the light. And then the art and the installations and the weavings and some of the things that are inside it are just truly a gorgeous. So that's always I feel like a nice place to start with people.
Yeah. Do you know Linda Wong and Matt Earhart? They have Earhart, now they do construction. They Linda, like other people in the LA area, because Linda's an architect, but he got a construction management degree from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where she also got her degree up. But he was a construction manager on the cathedral. Yeah. And so, and then, because he was with Morley, and then he went to do residential, for somebody's big, and now they do their own residential construction. So they're doing, yeah. And I'm going to interview them also as a part of fire, rebuilding, because they might be rebuilding a few projects there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Projects up there.
Yeah. Okay, I would also add for me too, I really enjoy sort of the case study era homes, and which, even though Schindler wasn't considered case study, was part of that whole time. But we live in a neighborhood where there's a development, a Gregory Ain development.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I always find this level of joy in walking through there, and because there was so much attention paid to small details. They're not big homes, and they're very sort of abstract, and yet there's some just beautiful details that grab your eyes. And so I think there are many architects who were involved with that, but I think as a general period of building, it was something that I really find pleasure in, just revisiting.
Yeah, one of our friends from church actually lived across the street, right? Not the street that's in front of there, but the street that runs perpendicular to that on the other side of it, further west, I guess it would be. And they lived on one of those streets off of there, so they weren't that far. So we would drive by it, and the second that I drive, like, I hadn't known about it until I went over to their house, and I'm like, which project is that? And then of course, like, Steve had said something like, "Oh, do you live in the Gregory Ain?" But they didn't. They lived in like the total 180 degree, like, different house. I mean, it was an older house, but it wasn't, it wasn't one of those houses. But I mean, it's kind of nice to see them, they're still a neighborhood, right? And you kind of like see it as that it's still laid out in pretty much the same grid as the other in the neighborhood. And then it's also aged, right? So it's like things are, it's still a tract, but it's, it's kind of the way that it has evolved over the years.
Yeah. Stayed, truer to their, original design, and then some liberties and expanded. And, but it does still feel like the development that it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had a flyer from there. Oh my gosh, how much was it? I mean, at the time, I can imagine. I could look at. Oh my gosh, look at how much this is, and it was right before we moved, so it was probably, it was 99 or 98 or something. And I was looking, I'm like, oh, look at this, and I think it was like $250,000 or 300,000. Yeah, probably like 300,000 would have been a lot. Yeah. So yeah, and now it's, what is it, like 2 million or something like that?
Well, there was one that was on the market recently, and I think it was 1.7.
No, it was maybe 1.9.
1.9.
But it's
It's under 2, which in our neighborhood.
Yeah. I know. It was interesting that you brought that up early on. I think when we first moved to LA, and we didn't know that we were going to be able to buy something, but we ended up finding that house in foreclosure, the one in Venice. And that's really the only way that I think we ever would have gotten into the market, because it was sort of the bottom of the market at the time.
Mhm.
And to think that we bought that property for like $150,000,
Yeah.
and now it just, you couldn't buy bare land. Well, you couldn't buy anything for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we realized when Jane
Right.
Fonda was showing her stepson the property across the street that we're like, there's no way we're ever, because we were right off the traffic circle. We're like, forget it. Like we're gonna move to San Diego. And then we moved down here, and my brother and his wife were saying, oh yeah, we're gonna wait for things to come down. I'm like, it's not going down.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
It's not going down. And they probably bought like 3 months after us. And even in that short amount of time, it was probably like $20,000 to $30,000 more than when they had started looking, And so we had watched the market. We'd started looking like maybe a year before we moved down here, and stuff pretty much it was going to 60 to 70,000 more in just that 1 year. And that's why we were like, no, we're gonna like look for a place, we're gonna get it, and I can remember asking my mom, like, it's like, how do we know it's the right thing? She's like, it's like getting married. You're only going to get married to somebody that's available and has asked you. It's like if there's only so many houses for sale. And my mom, she bought her first house at like 20 years of age, right? Back east, and she said, yeah, if the house is available and like you can afford it, it's like, and there's nothing else, then that's the house you're going to have, that's it. Yeah.
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 That's great.
That is pretty funny. Well, the house that we ended up finding, although we did kind of dig for a long time, but it being in foreclosure, whoever left it took everything out of it, including light fixtures.
It was a
and
shell,
switches, and you name it, it was gone. There was nothing left. So, but we were young, and it was fun. It was an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And when did you guys buy it then?
94?
I
No.
think we got in 93.
Yeah, we did, because I was pregnant.
Yeah, the fall of 93.
Yeah,
Okay. So you worked
like
fast on it.
we did.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were
Okay.
and looking at buying during that 92, 93, where everything had gone to heckalooey, and every time something sold at 250, and we're like, oh, we should have bought that. That's the bottom. And then we looked at this same house when it was on the market at like 275. It was on the market at 275. And about a year later, we asked our realtor, whatever happened to that one house on Cabrillo? And he goes, let me look into it. He looked into it, and he goes, hey, it's a shell, and it went into the foreclosure market. So we made an offer directly to the bank that was holding the paper.
Yeah.
It wasn't even for sale per se.
Yeah.
We just
It
made
was-
them an offer and they accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, people, it's funny because I'll say to people, oh, we lived in Venice Beach, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm like, no, when we lived there, nobody wanted to live there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, our house had, the house that we bought, one thing that they left were the bars on the windows. So all the windows had bars on them because they couldn't get them off. They would have probably ripped them off and tried to sell those too. But
Yeah, they could
we
have.
had bars on the windows.
And wasn't even 600 square feet,
No,
the house, when we bought it.
yeah.
And even,
And then you renovated it.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the end of that, I mean, it was only 900 and something square
Yeah.
feet. I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually went by there recently, and it's still the same as when we left it, and they haven't.
It's good.
it looks the same.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's good.
yeah.
So what do you like about being an architect?
I have sort of a love-hate relationship with it.
I think everybody does.
Being honest.
Depending on what day it is.
Yeah. I think part of it is just my temperament. I'm not a huge people person, and so that aspect of the work is hard for me. But I also love it in the sense that it's like it's kind of like creating these projects that last for years And then when they're done, I mean, we've had a handful of clients who've come back and then continually tell us how happy they are in their homes. And I think there's just a sense of satisfaction that you really were able to translate somebody's wishes and desires into something tangible that really resonated with them. And so that part of it to me is really satisfying. But I think the process for me, it gets stressful and it involves a lot of people time.
Yeah, it's very intimate. And I mean, sometimes it's just very much, I mean, it's like so much mothering. And sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't mother anymore, I mean,
Right.
But I mean, you have to work it through. And, it's like it's unlike commercial architects who are typically working with a developer or somebody that like repeats the process with some, and people are like, oh yeah, give me like a such and such Starbucks or whatever, I mean, with a homeowner, it's like, it's a different home. It's a different, they're different clients, it's like typically we never get the same home again, right? We don't,
Right.
I mean, I have like designed and done additions for like several homes in my area, but none of even those homes, even within the tract, they're totally different floor plans where people have done other stuff to them where it's still different than like what there was before. And so it's never the same, it's never the same process. It's not like we can just say, okay, here's how we can add on. It's like I could say, oh, with this floor plan, like what we have, we can add on the same way that I did or the same way that we did with this. But, it just kind of depends. And then people, they have different needs, or like sometimes, they'll want to place a room or something that is totally different from where you would think it should go. I mean, it's kind of so personalized, and that's kind of like, okay, it's a custom home, so that's kind of the way, it's like that's the way they live, and that's what they're getting a custom home, specifically for them, and their needs. So.
I do think the harder projects are those kind of where there isn't a whole lot of room to translate what people are telling you they want into something, maybe not to say it has to be different, but into something that is more cohesive as a plate.
Yeah. And I mean, we are like kind of synthesizers in ways. And so we're able to like, and because we've done things, it's like, this might be their only house, but we've done, I mean, how many projects have we worked on over a career of like how many years, and there are certain ways it's like, okay, like this is the way a bathroom works. It's like, it doesn't work like there, it's like, yeah, maybe you can put the toilet in a little triangle over here, but it's not going to work well. It's like, that's not the way we do things. We have to go by the code. It doesn't matter that you saw some bathroom, that was like 3 by 5 somewhere that fit everything into it, which I would say like, okay, like, it looks like like an airplane bathroom or something. I mean, nobody wants an airplane bathroom in their home. It's not comfortable. It doesn't work well. It's like, that's the reason why we don't do them in your house. Yeah.
Right. There's a reason.
Yes, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my drive in a funny sort of way, and I think that this is why we do work together a little bit more. I'm probably a little more extroverted, and I actually enjoy the people part of it. So I like architecture because it's a creative endeavor, and it's challenging. Every day is a different day, and I like listening to people and trying to see if I can help them. So I think that the people part of it, for a while we used to do things where if it had people stuff, I did it, but we've gotten a little bit more, we both kind of manage our own projects at this point and go all the way through.
Yeah.
So, but at that point there was me doing more of the people stuff, but it's good. I like it. I very much.
Yeah. No, I like the people. I like the people part.
Yeah.
It's just like being able to, tell all of these.
I mean, sometimes I do say there are great moments, but I think in general I need that quiet time too on top of it. But I think that really, you can't become stagnant because it's forever changing world where every aspect of the field is new every time you start a project, because codes are updating, products are updating, every site has different constraints, every person that brings you into a project is different, has different desires, different family structure, different,
Yes.
So it's it's nice that it never feels like you kind of are doing the same thing over and over again. It's never the same.
Yeah. And I always like when you meet somebody for the first time, right? They're like, well, what would you do? And I'm like, well, I don't really know you that well. It's like, really, it's like you have to get to know the person before. It's like, I'm not your Tinder architect. Like, I'm not going to show up and I'm just going to slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. It's like, I need to see, I need to meet with you. I need to draw the house. I need to look at the plans, and then I start to visualize that, and then I'm coming up with a concept, whether or not it's like a very literal concept or it's some type of figurative concept that sometimes maybe I don't even, know what that is, and then it just kind of evolves. And then I look and I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, some clients are more into the concept of it. Other clients, it's like they're, they could care less what the theme was or anything like that. They just want, it done. And so that kind of gives you okay, here's the concept that I see with this project and with the site, with you, with the house, what we're gonna do here.
Right.
Yeah. So neither of you are fellows, right? I know we talked. Yeah, no. Okay. So what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
Ooh, you start on that one.
I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful, but I'm also just a tiny bit nervous about artificial intelligence. I think that AI is going to challenge those of us that are a little bit more mature in our careers, perhaps. And it's fascinating watching. I'm thinking the next, 4 or 5 years, it's going to be an interesting process, because I think a lot of the sort of rote things that we do will be done by different methodologies. And it'll be interesting to see how quickly creative endeavors get accomplished by computer systems. So right now, we're not seeing a huge impact yet, but we're using it for not typically three-dimensional things, but language and writing and idea kind of outlines and things like that. And it's pretty fascinating what it can do, because it really takes the blank page and boy, it can fill it up. Too full, usually. It's like a lot of editing. So
I got a letter this morning from somebody that wanted to be on the podcast, but they're not in architecture. But it was just funny how they were able to take one of the kind of one of the blogs and the podcasts and just synthesize it into this thing. And I was kind of laughing, and I'm like, no, I know that they probably did not listen to the podcast and probably did not read the blog, but this is everything. Yeah. This is everything that kind of, it was talking about oh, I like the way that you wore pink. And, even though the other two teams, because I did one for the Super Bowl, right? So it's they wore, Kansas City and Philadelphia, right? And then I said I wore pink, which wasn't even I wasn't, I was kind of remaining neutral or whatever, but it was wasn't kind of even planned or anything. I don't have any sports attire, but but it was just funny, this whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But, I could tell, AI wrote this. I don't think that person actually did. And because they're in tech, I'm sure that they probably did. And they're sending this out to everybody who has a podcast, and doing it, okay, write a letter for this person. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be our job, I think, in the next 3 years, is just discerning what's truth and what's not.
Yeah.
We're supposed to write it on there, right? even on Instagram now, we're supposed to say like whether or not it's auto, whether it's our own or whether it's like something else. Yeah. In case you're using like some star or something like that, right? In your building or something. Did you see the podcast that we did on AI with Greg Tate? I just did the last one. So his are more kind of like he'll put this imagery in, but then and then it comes out with stuff. But his stuff is just like totally, I mean, it's kind of surreal and like really, and I think like very romantic and very beautiful, in some ways. So it's kind of, and there's people included in all of them, which is really interesting. So it ends up like they're kind of these very romantic things. And he's an architect, but this stuff is just kind of what is it, like lightweight, heavy conversation or something like that.
Watch Toby Vita does a Wednesday sort of AI generating thing on I don't know if it's on Instagram or LinkedIn, or I think it's probably both. But he does some beautiful kind of, he just once a week assigns a task to AI that's a visual task, and so it's DALL-E or whatever it is, and they're very beautiful kind of dreamlike structures that come out. So it's fun.
Yeah.
In that sense, it's challenging. It's interesting too, because I think with our kids, some of their peers ended up going to architecture school, and there was sort of this trend that they called themselves makers, and to me that was somewhat reassuring that they appreciate, this next generation does appreciate working with your hands and creating, what's the word? Not digitally, but analog. Yeah, the analog version. But I think that's been sort of interesting and eye-opening, with this next generation coming into it. One of the things that we've been experiencing, and this is a little bit more of something that's been ongoing forever in the world of architecture, is this idea that the value of being an architect, and this has come up for us on several occasions, specifically related to the rebuilding, because insurance companies are involved and clients who didn't anticipate losing homes and having to rebuild, but that the value of us doing our work is always in question. And, getting paid for the time that we put in, which is always, no matter what, more than
of course,
fee to cover.
We're always working more than what we're charging for. I mean, I don't care who it is, it's like people like look at what somebody was saying, something about like, oh, well, your hourly should be more in order, I'm like, oh, can you bill for, you as an owner of your firm? I said, you're billing out at your hourly for 40 hours a week. And I said, we'd all be making $30,000 a month. I mean, I'm like, I know we're not making $30,000 a month. And I said, so it's like, if you can figure out a way that you can bill out as a firm owner for, 40 to 60 hours, a week, go right ahead,
That'd be great.
Well, and it came up with this insurance adjuster, and you can tell this story, but
I'm not going to tell this story on a blog.
Okay, but question.
Yeah, we'll just in case that anybody's scraping the internet for information.
Oh, I know.
This is
you never know.
It's a conversation.
Well, it was interesting because somebody was like saying something to me, the other day, but they didn't do residential. And then they were saying, oh, well, people are going to be getting like this much money. And I'm like, okay, you don't know how much it costs for residential right now. Like you can build nothing, you can build the bare minimum for $350 a square foot. And I said, so, it's not like they're getting all this money back. I look at my insurance thing every single time and I'm like, I'm going to be able to rebuild it with this. Oh, well, but with the building code adjustment and all this other stuff. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. So it's interesting, that we have this. And then there was, he wasn't an adjuster, but I think he's an insurance broker, was kind of speaking on one of the forums, and he was talking about these ways that you can get more money for things. And I was like, are you, buddy, like this is being recorded?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. We are all getting used to being recorded, and we're all
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, what? I'm like, I don't know, it's like, oh, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I've never heard that. I mean, maybe that's the way that you can do it or something, but I mean, I don't know, it's like architects typically aren't people that are trying to find a way to
Monetize.
cheat the system or something.
Leverage the system.
Leverage the system.
But that's what everybody's trying to do. We're having conversations every day with people about insurance and what can count for what and how you count both the inside and the it's really, and the code. That's an interesting thing, because a lot of insurance policies have a code upgrade coverage.
Yes.
Yes.
You want to try to put the whole house into code upgrade coverage. So,
Yeah,
exactly. So he was kind of talking about that. So what else would you like to say about the future of architecture?
I don't know if I have any more to say about it. It's
the future is bright.
Is there anything else?
No, it's been fun. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to chat.
How's your new space? It looks nice.
Our new space, So Sue's office is over there and mine's over there. And you've seen me on calls before where it's like I could move and point at her. Now I can't, because there's actually cubbies in between us. So it's good. It's good.
And then you've got the renderings in frames. So that,
postcards we send out. They're like holiday postcards and things like that. So
right.
Yeah, you've got your bookshelf wealth going there.
Clients this year. What?
Bookshelf wealth, I said. Bookshelf.
Yeah. Well, it's nice, and now we have more space to actually hold meetings in our office. It's interesting. I think the one thing that we didn't really talk about is that a good deal of our business is we work with outsourcing, because Jefferson had been a part of starting this company that did production outsourcing.
The CAD source?
And we've maintained a relationship with that team and used them for most of our production work. So we don't have a whole lot of people in the office.
They're in India, so we don't have to have desks.
The majority of our people are. We have a few consultants that come in and out and work with us, and of course we have office administrative help. But
so structural. Is structural still in town, or are they outsourced also?
Yeah, no, we have we use 3 different structural engineers, and they're all in town. We don't. But we have there is a project we're working on where I think that the structural seems to be more national and kind of an outsourced type thing, where you have a project representative, and then but they're all different.
It is funny. I get a lot of emails from
people like
from
that.
Engineering companies.
Yeah, me too. And for MEP and things like that. Which I don't. Or rendering companies. I mean, that's kind of also like what people are asking for renderings with the rebuilding, and it's like, okay, well, we're rebuilding what you had before, so do we need to bring up rendering?
Right.
And then I kind of said, like, okay, renderings are extra unless you have a BIM program. I said, if we put it in a BIM program, if I have a person who does BIM, maybe we'll be able to come up with renderings a little bit easier. But, for building back what your house already looked like before, like, do we need these exterior renderings? And then, it's like, are we charging, we're charging, or we have to charge for them. We have to pay somebody to do them, so
Fortunately, our team, since they work in Revit, we
Mm-hmm.
able to do.
We can get fairly, the simple renderings are easy and
Yeah.
Yeah.
photorealistic or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You'll be able to see it, but you won't, won't be. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It won't look like an AI image.
Yeah, we're off to the AIA Long Beach Cran.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
A shout out for them and their, what are they striving for? Coastal dominance or something?
No, it's not.
Weird that Long Beach was having the meeting.
Here's an easy, because I'm not on the national. Not on the national board anymore. And then we do not have. They can't get anybody to head up the one that's in San Diego. Nobody seems to do that, because And I said I didn't want to go because I'm not volunteering for anything after age 60, even though I am volunteering at Taliesin West. So I will volunteer over there. Yeah. And so,
right next door.
Yeah, right next door. Yeah. So anyway, one of the things they were kind of talking about how we maybe have like a coastal crayon group, because you don't have to have just the group within your city or whatever. It can be regions. And so that, they had the Coastal Crayon Design Awards, which I don't know whether you guys participated in them, but it was at the DWR in Santa Monica. And then Jonathan Siegel and Jennifer Luce were two of the people. And then it was somebody from Northern California that was also involved. But I mean, I think that Coastal Crayon, I think that's how we ran the entire coast of California.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they're thinking, because people that do, custom residential, typically, it's like most of us are small firms, it's like we don't, it's like we don't get we don't do a lot of stuff, or to have one person have to coordinate, get-togethers for everything. And they've kind of said oh yeah, they're going to get, they'll create that stuff. So if they have people and they're kind of a strong chapter, then it's right. So yeah, I mean, I went to the one that was in Santa Monica at DWR, and it's a good event. Yeah. So I'll let you guys go on that moment. I'll stop the tape. So thank you so much, Sue. Thank you, Jefferson.
Great seeing you.
Thank you. Yes, great seeing you too.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.